Bill, you made a significant contribution to EKU by writing a history of Eastern Kentucky University. How did you happen to take on that project?
I'd wanted to do it for years, for quite a long time. As a matter of fact, I had tried to get some support from the school back in the 80s, or mid-90s at least, or a little earlier maybe, to write a history of Eastern. But if you teach a full-loaded Eastern 12 hours, it's hard to do writing. And the few books that I was able to write came because I did get some support in some way. So in 1998, I started talking with President Custra about writing a history of Eastern, and was able to get some support from the school to retire a little bit early than I might have wanted to. As it turned out, this didn't have anything, there was no real connection here, but I was about to have a heart attack and 6 bypass surgery. And it turned out that the best thing for me to do was to retire. I think 1999 was also a year in which there was no early retirement option. And I started working on a history of Eastern, and was able to I thought it would be a 3-year project. It turned out to be about 5 years. But I was retired and I was doing some other things, and also very fortunate to have a return of health good enough that I could do a project like this. I did a lot of work in our library, working on research in the archives, in the papers of Dr. Martin and other people, and in the university records, which are fairly complete and really have a lot of great information. But that was the beginning of the project. I wanted to have it finished in time for the centennial of the school, and was able to, the University Press of Kentucky was very gracious to publish the book. The Eastern was gracious in helping to fund the publication, and it came out in 2005. It could have been a much longer book, or larger book. I could have included a lot of other things, but I wanted a fairly readable, shorter book that people could pick up and read a history of Eastern right from the beginning. I also included a chapter about Central University, which was on this campus beginning in 1874, which was an entirely separate school from Eastern, but it's kind of a setting the framework for the type of school that Eastern would become. One of the things that you mentioned earlier about what is Eastern all about. Richmond and Eastern have always been in many ways very southern. And that's because of the location and because of the way in which it was founded in the early part of the 20th century. I've often made the remark that I wish Eastern was still called the Maroons. And unfortunately, the name Colonels has a connotation of something about slavery and about the Old South. And I know this isn't popular among a lot of people, but one of the reasons why it was became known as the Colonels is because Bob Martin thought Maroons was not, it didn't sound mean enough or something, I don't know. And so he encouraged a new name. Well, the name Colonels, of course, has caught on, and now Eastern's synonymous with the name Colonels. But it also has a little bit of the connotation of the Old South and the racist image that we came out of in the 1940s and 1950s. Eastern did not become integrated quickly or very soon with Brown versus Board of Education in 1954, and sort of dragged its feet into becoming an integrated school. So we've been really, in a way, playing catch-up ever since the late 1950s to become an integrated, or at least a fully integrated university. There have been times when it's been difficult to get African-American faculty members, for example, and that's still a struggle because they can often go to other schools for much more pay. But Eastern's changed a lot over the years. We're not the type of school we were in the 1950s and 1960s. I have to say that Bob Martin, as conservative as he was in a lot of ways, realized that Eastern had to become integrated as quickly as possible. But it's not a simple task of just opening the doors and say everybody that wants to come here can come here. You've got to find money for students. You've got to find students that want certain educational opportunities. So I wish we weren't known as the Colonels, but we are, and well, I guess we'll just have to live with that. As I said, when the new mascot's image came out, I thought it looked like the Colonel on steroids, but with his big muscles. But that's just part of the aura of Eastern at this time.
Well, there are a lot of interesting stories about the race issue at Eastern, and your former colleague Bill Burge has a lot of experience with that I want to talk to him about at some point. Yeah. But
well, at one time at Eastern basketball and football games, the Confederate flag was used, and Martin put a stop to that, mm-hmm. as he did one time at a basketball game, and people were kind of shocked. I've forgotten who they were playing, but the students were shouting words to the effect, "Go to hell, so-and-so," and Martin stood up and said, "Don't say that anymore." Mm-hmm. Well, they stopped saying that. You know, that sounds like a small thing to do, but you know, he also put a stop to waving the Confederate flag at athletic events as well.
As we said earlier, Bob Martin often did the right things, even though he sometimes didn't get credit for it. One thing I wanted you to talk about is in the subtitle of your book, you call Eastern the School of Opportunity. Is this a prevailing theme in your book, and if so, tell us a little bit about what you meant by that.
Well, I've tried to work several themes in the book, including as I say, the southernness of the school in mm-hmm. many ways, and the fact that we were always tied to, as everybody is, to the economic whims of nature and what's going on in the country and also in the world. We were never free of wars and the problems that wars cause, and I always tried to weave that into the story of Eastern.